Alright, let's get started. So I've been gone for a little bit here, been busy with stuff, kind of getting tied up with real life, but back to wanting to get this completed and finished up. So I want to at least get this mid section done tonight, and let's see what else we have to do. We got to finish up here, do a little bit of roughness on this bottom piece, but not much because most of this is covered. And then I think just this part here too needs to get roughed up, and then I think that's actually done. So let's get started on that. One thing I want to do is I want to continue this crack up. It looks a little weird ending there, so I kind of want to continue this up, maybe through the top, make that look like all one piece or something. So let's go ahead and do that first. Let's turn our draw size down. Do that just a little bit. I think I'm going to come maybe back, and then we're going to go up here, I think. And remember, at the start of these cracks, it looks kind of bad. All we're trying to do is we're trying to get that sort of indentation in there, so then we can come in with our other brushes and make it look good. And I'm just going to go back with this, even though the blocks are up here, and those will cover up this back section. So let's grab this brush. And I found that a size of about 4 works good. So and like before, I'm not going to worry about that pixel, that sort of pixel that's going on, the pixelization, there's the word I was looking for, that's going on in there. Just because when we apply our noise, it's going to kind of go away, so I'm not really worried about that. I'm going to run this down in here a little bit though, just to kind of open that channel back up. And cracks tend to be a pretty important aspect of sculpting, so you kind of want to spend a decent amount of time on them. You don't want them to look bad, and they can really add to your model. And those stones come to about right here, so yeah, that's about where that crack's gonna end, so I like that. So I think that looks pretty good. This front piece still needs to get worked on, it looks like. So I'm going to set this to Z sub, to up our draw size a little bit. Let me go down a little bit, we're just going to cut in. I did finally upgrade to a 960 from a 660, so hopefully that will help with some of the crashes and things I had been facing. And I want to turn on my square alpha for the H polish brush, that way it roughs it up a little bit. And then just the same thing down here. I kind of want to rough up, for some reason this front piece doesn't look as roughed up as it should, so I'm just going to go over this again real quick. I'm going to avoid hitting some of this other detail because I don't want to wipe that out. gonna grab my polish a little bit. There's a couple weird little sections in here. Like right in here, it looks a little strange, so we're just gonna kind of smooth that out, make that look a little bit more chipped. Kind of define those edges a little bit. You know, when it comes to normal matte baking, the harsher your edges are on these little details, the better it's going to bake out. Looks like I just need to rough up right in here too. So that looks pretty good. For areas like this where we've got kind of some weird, actually hold on. Let me actually turn my square alpha on for this brush. That way it's not so blobby. Kind of make sure that we don't have any areas that look overly pillowy or anything like that. We want to avoid that. Mainly I want to make sure the silhouette looks good. It looks good when the camera's kind of pulled back. Make sure each side has a consistent look to it. And make sure there's no like glaring issues, like there's a little weirdity in here, so let's fix that. Yeah, we don't want anything that looks weird that catches the eye when somebody would be looking at it and go, well, that doesn't look right. And right here, just tighten that up a little bit. And I'm just using a simple H polish with square alpha on it, just to clean up some of these sharper edges. So this all looks fine, this looks fine, this looks fine all up in here. Just clean up some of this. This all looks fine. And this all looks pretty good, maybe just a little bit of tightening in here. We want like this clear, this sort of nice harsh line between these different angles because we'll probably cut our UVs there. So we want to kind of drop that in, make sure it has a nice hard line so we can hide the UV seams inside the ambient occlusion. Alright, I think that looks good. Now the last thing I'm going to do is just this top section. And we just want to rough it up as we've been doing. So I'm going to actually increase my size up. We're just going to cut in. And the reason it has this big hole in the center is because that's covered up by another mesh. It's covered up by the blocks that go on top. So to save polygon count and to make sure that I wasn't wasting polygons on something that you can't even see, I just cut that part out. I'm not really thinking about the pressure here, I'm just letting the brush do the work. get a more natural feel that way. And I'm making sure not to get too close to the edges, because if you get too close, you're going to start killing that detail you've already worked to sculpt in. Make sure I avoid my crack here that I made, and kind of go around it. And just grab our H polish again. I'm actually going to save real quick because I've done a bunch of work. And now we're just going to polish this out. And you can see it starts to get more of just a nicer look to it when you start adding this little detail to the top. Kind of just, you know, unevens that surface a little bit, gives it some visual interest where the light starts catching, makes it not seem so artificial. If you start getting too uneven with it, you can just hold the Alt key, start filling in some of those holes again if you need to. I'm not really worried too much about this intersection because that's all covered up anyways, so I'm not going to spend really any time taking care of that. Just going to work on these outer edges. And you can see when I start to get close to the edge, it kind of pushes that top edge right in here out a little bit. So using that square alpha is a nice way to get sort of a tighter edge up in there. Careful holding the Alt key and getting close to that edge though, because it can kind of bloat it out a little bit. I'm going back over it as I'm just getting rid of some of these smaller strokes that kind of make it look like it's been sculpted. So like right here, we've got all these little like crisscrosses. I want to kind of get rid of those. Just because those, tend to kind of really show that it's been sculpted. Dang, it might just turn autosave off here. If I save it manually, it's fine. The minute it goes into autosave, it crashes. Let's see. So 25 is going to be the latest quick save. Let's see where that is. You can see their numbers, so 624, 22, 23. The one with the latest number is the most recent quick save. Just give it a minute to load here. And that's not the one we want. So let's go to the one we manually saved, because this is like before I even started working. Looks like it's decided to show my entire model too, instead of just the one piece. So we'll give this a minute to load and get its mind back. we go. So it looks like we lost just smoothing it out. It's not that big of a deal. We'll need to fix my brushes though, because this will unset the alpha. Alright, so let me actually, let's find a quick save. I'm just going to turn its duration up way up, and I'm going to delete the files. Alright, that shouldn't bother us again. And you don't want to go too overboard with a flat surface like this, because flat surfaces tend to take less damage, simply because of how they're designed. So if you figure this is a pillar, there's some blocks here. This area is going to take a lot less damage than, say, the ones that are jutting out. If something's falling, they have a lot more surface area rather than, say, like these corners. So they're not going to have as huge indents and breaks and things as some of the other pieces. So keep that in mind when you're sort of sculpting. And you can kind of notice stuff like that if you've ever, sort of looked at like sidewalks or any sort of concrete surface. You'll notice the areas that are sort of larger and flat tend to have less damage than, say, the edges. Or like the curbside tends to get more damage than the actual sidewalk, things like that. And if you ever felt like you did too much damage, you could always just come in with a flattened brush as well and clean some of this up, kind of even it out. There, you can just see how that kind of roughs up that surface a little bit. So I might want to do maybe 1 or 2 more cracks, and I think that's it. I'll call it on this one. We're going to do the same thing we did with the bricks, with adding the surface noise and then some alphas on top of it just to rough up the surface one last time. So let's see. So we've got no cracks on either side, except, well, we've got some right here. I like to keep one side without cracks, so let's add, kind of have a little one here, so let's finish that one off, and I think that'll be it for the cracks. I might need to just fix up right here. So the program crashed. Let me just check my brush surface settings real quick. Our size, let's drop that down. Let's go to our not transform, let's go to our stroke. And lazy mouse, let's set this to 55. Drop that to about 7. Not liking too much how this is kind of a little too round, I think. So I'm gonna kinda trim that out a little bit, I think. Maybe what we'll do is we'll have this kind of come up just a little bit, like that. So maybe something like that. I'll just kind of cut this in a little bit more, just like that. So maybe something like that. Now let's try our pinch. Sometimes you just have to keep playing with it, you know, maybe adding, subtracting, going back a little bit if things aren't really working the way you're liking. So I think that looks better. So I think this is good. I think let's just clean up right here. What happened here is when I was doing this crack, the orbs crack probably just hit this a little bit, so we're just going to continue that down. And let's undo that. And we'll just have that come down maybe a little bit. Maybe like that. Let's make it a little bit deeper, so we're just going to go over it again. Grab our clay, back it down. And sometimes you don't want to go too low with this brush because you start getting these really sort of harsh circles. So you want to kind of keep the brush a little bit bigger. And let's draw that out again. Something like that. Just draw it out again here. I'm going to put my draw size on the orbs crack back up. And one of the reasons why you want to go bigger on this is because it's easier to get in there with the other brushes and kind of chip away the sides when the crack's bigger. And we're going to make it smaller with the pinch brush anyways. So you can see how setting that to 7, I can get like up in here a lot easier on these sides, kind of chip those away. Then we can come back in, we'll draw it one more time at a smaller, just to get that groove in there. Then we'll come in with our pinch brush. I'm going to chip away a little bit up in here. just click these up here, which is sort of our little timeline, or undo history. Alright, so this one, so what we're going to do is we're just going to grab an H polish. That warning is just saying that I'm sort of starting over on a place that wasn't my final. So there, I'm just going to clean that up. So I think that looks good. We've got some cracks on here. Alright, so next what we want to do, so I'm going to save it one more time. Then we're going to do a morph target on it. And what that'll do is that'll save a snapshot of what our mesh looks like right now, so that when we apply some surface noise to it, we can go between what it looks like now and what it looks like when the surface noise applied. Morph target's a really good way if you're going to be doing any really hefty changes to your mesh, like noise, to make sure that you retain what you've got currently just in case you don't like it. So what we'll do is we'll store MT, so that's storing a snapshot basically of this. Then we're going to go into surface, we're going to go into noise, and I have a noise saved already, which makes it look like this. You can see that I've got a custom curve going up in here that I've made. We're going to hit OK. That looks fine. So you can see really noisy. This doesn't look good at all. So what we're going to do is we're going to apply to a mesh. We're going to let it deform. And that looks terrible. So what we're going to do is we're going to go down to our morph target. And you can see that what we do now is we start pulling this to a positive value. It starts moving it back towards what we saved on our morph. So that was what we saved before we applied the noise to it. So I like to go to maybe about 90. I'm gonna let that off. So we can see that now we have our original sculpt, but now we have some surface noise added to it as well. We'll look at that in our harsh light. If my light box would go away. Alright, I think that's looking pretty good. When you're working in ZBrush, you kind of have to oversell the noise a little bit, because a lot of it isn't going to bake. Right, so all these little tiny small details and things probably won't come through in our bake, but looks pretty good here. I think cracks look good. And you could always go a little bit more if we wanted to move back towards that a little bit more, we could. You see if we go the other way, it moves it back towards what we had before. So I'm going to go for maybe that, just lighten it up a little bit. And what that'll do too is any areas we missed that were maybe too soft or lack some detail, it'll just add some roughness in there as well. Now, the last thing I want to do is I want to add one more thing. Let's see if I have that brush loaded. Doesn't look like it, so I'm going to load a brush. We're going to go back to our ZBrush folder. I actually have this loaded in alphas for some reason, and I think it's Concrete Detail 3. Nope, not that one. Let's load another one. And this is actually a pack of brushes called zBrush Marble Damage. You can just Google search that. It's a pretty good brush pack. You can see that it comes with quite a bit of stuff. So I would recommend grabbing that if you're looking for any sort of concrete detail. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, so this is really rough. We don't want something like that because that looks terrible. What we can do is we can pull down our intensity to say about 4. Now if we drag that out, we start to get some roughness there. But it's not nearly as sort of tough and jarring as it was before. And I want to look at one more, which I think is 2. So same thing, you can see that's really rough, so we're just going to back that down to say 4. I'm going to go to 3 on that, and just sort of drag that out. Might be a little hard to see on the stream, but it's just adding. You zoom in, you can see it's kind of adding like these little sort of, you know, sort of raised areas in there. You can hold the Alt key too and kind of get some indentations. I'm kind of just dragging them all over the place, not really planning it out too much, just letting it, you know, kind of go on the surface. There, so I think that middle section's done. It's gotten roughed up. Got enough detail in it, it'll look pretty good when we bake it out. Top's roughed up. This I'm not worried about because this is all covered down here, so I'm not really worried about this bottom section. Go back and save this one more time. That diorama, fantasy caves, these sculpts. When you're working on a lot of projects at once, you tend to have a lot of folders. Alright, so I think that section's done. I think we're just going to keep moving down the mesh. Probably working on, let's see, maybe these sections next, these sort of side sections, or possibly the bricks, one or the other. They're about the same height going down underneath this, so we'll probably start working on those next. Probably pick something like this. These bricks, doing sort of the same things, adding a couple cracks here and there, and then just doing the morph target. And I might need to just get a little bit of extra detail on with the brush, but I think they look fine overall. Yeah, you can see kind of how this, where I just did, has a nice sharp line. This is a little bit blurrier, so we can kind of just fix that up quick. But we'll finish this up next time. These shouldn't take too long. We're just going to run down, do the 4 sets, then we'll finish these up, and then we'll pretty much be getting towards the end. So yeah, next time we'll be doing these blocks. Like always, you can check out my YouTube channel for all the past videos. I stream as close to my schedule as possible. I've been a little bit off the past week or so, but I want to get this done here pretty quick so we can move on to some new stuff in the scene. So I'll be kind of moving pretty quickly through the rest of this. And yeah, if you're interested, make sure to subscribe, check me out on YouTube. I do my best to post on Twitter. I'm really bad at posting on Twitter, but I'll try to get better in the future. So I hope you guys enjoyed, I hope you learned something, and I'll see you guys next time.